You're listening to the Fitness Rants podcast, the show where unfiltered conversations meet real-world health and fitness.
We cut through the noise and deep dive into the truth behind health, nutrition, physique development, and the fitness industry itself.
We're your hosts, Ross Gilmore and Malin Blumdahl, experienced coaches and educators who have been part of the fitness industry for over 15 years.
If you're a coach, high performer, or someone just tired of mainstream nonsense, you're in the right place.
Now let's get into today's episode. All right, welcome to episode 2 of the Fitness Rants podcast. We're going to dive straight into a topic that we hold quite close because we work in that part of the fitness industry, which is achieving incredible physique transformations. But what we really want to dive into today is the falsehoods and the lies that you're being sold to pull you into buying into what we would term as potentially unrealistic or even unethical transformation programs and approaches. So let's dive into that. So when we think about transformations, everyone's seen on Instagram the whole 8 to 12 week rapid transformation, and they see the before and after photos. And I think people like the idea of those transformations, but they don't necessarily appreciate exactly what goes into achieving that, nor do they know that there's actually other alternatives to achieving a transformation that you can actually hold on to for long periods of time. And then that's going to bring us into other topics to discuss of, well, what exactly is a maintainable transformation and what isn't. So these are just a couple of the aspects we're going to touch on. But I think first things first, is the fitness industry being wholly honest with the fitness consumer? What do you think?
Is the fitness industry being fully honest with the consumer? I think there's some messages out there that definitely aren't like helpful, especially some that, you know, that I see, especially with my audience. Eat everything you want and still lose weight, or like do the minimal. You don't need to change anything and you can still get results. But there is nuance to this, of course. Yeah. But you know, if you want to see a change, you do need to make a change. Right? So it's not going to be just, you know, I can have the same social life, the same eating habits. I mean, maybe nobody actually believes that. They know that, okay, I need to make a change. But it's just to what degree do we need to make that change? I guess that's and that will also depend on your goals, something that we spoke about like earlier. You know, the how lean do you want to get? Like the cost of that is going to be different depending on what that specific goal is.
The thing I wanted to try and see if you would sort of bring up or touch on there is, and you did to an extent, the bit at the beginning you said where eat all your favorite foods and still do it, is just the use of language and marketing. So one thing that's become more prominent in the last 5 to 10 years, as everyone has a voice on social media, people are getting more reach to more people than they've ever done before. There's more and more pressure to be able to write what is referred to as good copy that converts, copy that sells. For anyone that doesn't know, when I say copywriting just refers to the, I suppose you would say, the skill of being able to write in a way which is able to convey a story, it's able to convey a message in a way that speaks to people. And so someone who's got good skills in copywriting is usually going to be much more engaging to read than someone who hasn't got those skills. Now, copywriting has got to a point where it's almost, if you're a fitness professional and you've not done some form of copywriting, it's almost a bit strange, because whenever you work with business mentors or you're told that you need to get to a point where your content is fun, engaging. But the point I really wanted to get at, and I was going to see if you pulled this up with the thing you said at the beginning, is I always call it like the 3-pronged sales attack, which is kind of the digging into people's pain points. A lot of the sales copy that is put out there, whether it be a sales page or whether it's fitness content on Instagram, is, well, let's figure out all of the things that make people feel insecure, have self-doubt, that really play and tug at their heartstrings and emotions. So it might go something along the lines of lose 20 pounds in 8 weeks without giving up beer at the weekends or enjoying your favorite foods like your burgers or pizza. You know, that's a terrible copywriting line, and I would never get hired as a copywriter. But I think everyone, when I'm just at least sort of outlaying that as a general idea, most people have like, oh yeah, I've heard that. We all have. We've all been marketed to in some way or fashion with pain points. Pain point marketing is the oldest form of fitness marketing that you've seen out there now. I think what's nice now is that many consumers are starting to become smart to this, and it doesn't work with everyone, at least not all demographics. But I think this is where the lie begins with fitness marketing, is it's got to such a point where making sales and making revenue for coaches and for businesses has become a greater priority than actually being good at your job and actually getting results that not only
It's
or
not
great
just
results.
about the quick result. It's not just about the before and after. It's actually about the after what happens then. This is, at least as a coach, what I care about. Like, I want to get, of course, I want my clients to get results. I don't want them to not, succeed with their aesthetic goals, whatever that is, but not to the expense of their health, or if 6 months down the line they're back at square one. And I know for that to happen, we need to approach the journey and the transformation and the coaching in a different way. Yeah, like a very generalized copy-paste sort of, or overly restrictive, or like just for the purpose of losing weight kind of approach. It needs to go deep into that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the challenge we face as coaches, because someone might turn and say, well, surely it doesn't matter what these other coaches do or what fitness marketing is out there. Surely if we just do a good job, then...
It is honestly, it is hard, because as a coach, I am struggling with this, because I don't want to... of course, I want to help women. I want to help my clients. I want to coach them. I know I can do a good job with many women out there who has struggled with dieting or building muscle, whatever that may be. But I don't want to resort to these sort of tactics. And I feel like if I don't, you're not gonna stand out in a way. Like, it's unless I talk about X, Y, and Z or make these promises, then yeah, like it just doesn't stand out enough. Today, you almost have to. I feel that's whatever fucking algorithm. Algorithm, is that a word?
Say that 5 times fast.
That's you get rewarded for these things and for the most outrageous promises that you make, or extreme transformations. And I don't want to do anything that doesn't feel ethical.
No, you're right. And I think ultimately it's the polarizing messages and the polarizing stances and even the polarizing personalities and personas that people put on, that you sometimes meet people, you see them online and then you meet them in person, you're like, you are nothing like the persona that you portray online. And let's be honest, they're quite intelligent, because they know that, well, if they put on that persona and it speaks to people, it gets them sales, it gets them clients and customers. And this is where I think the fitness industry has really sold people a big lie. But then the next question might be, well, how does that affect you as a coach? Surely if you're a great coach, it doesn't matter, you just do a good job and that's it. But it's not quite as simple as that, because when clients come to us, one of our greatest jobs as coaches is to manage expectations. But the problem is when people's expectations have been wrongly pre-managed, they come to us with incredibly unrealistic expectations. You can be as good a coach in the world at explaining, well, here's where you are now, here's where we're trying to get to. There's a lot of conditioning that sometimes goes into those expectations leading up to the point of working with you. Yeah. So it is making our job as coaches harder and harder. And of course, we're having to get even better at the client psychology side of things and helping people to overcome these limiting beliefs and these unrealistic expectations. Because if we don't, people are going to come and they're just going to expect, well, I want to make 0 changes, but I want a different outcome. It's like, so what was Einstein's definition of insanity again? It's like, do all the same stuff and expect a different result.
I don't want to move more. I don't want to walk more. I don't want to, tone down my social life, or I want to eat this many meals out. And I mean, you're going to have to make changes to see changes.
100%.
But yeah, of course, still meeting the person where they are. That's not me saying, still... Yeah, like you want to again focus on the big rocks and make find the change that's easiest to make, the quick win. That's what I'm looking to say. Like, what's the quick win for you? The easiest change is going to create the biggest impact initially, and then we can build and progress on that. But anyway, it's always nuance to these things.
I think another danger that comes with the fitness marketing part is people are very clever about this, is that they'll sell the dream, but then the moment that they get into the program, 1-2 weeks in, then they tell them the reality. And that was actually a tactic, and you probably remember this. We've been taught this tactic. Was it? They say sell them what they want, but give them what they need. The problem is if you go too far in each direction with that, or you take too much of a 180 too quickly, then all of a sudden people just feel like, well, there's no way that this is managed, and it's not what I signed up for. Yeah. And so then straight away, it's never going to work.
It feels unauthentic to do if it's
inauthentic and it's unethical for a start.
And unethical, yeah.
So I think with us, like as coaches, certainly I know one of our most important jobs, people think, well, it must purely be doing a great initial consult and collecting all the data and, figuring out how to get the best optimal training program and set the right calorie starting targets. Actually, I would say that by far the most important part of the start of a coaching process is managing expectations and understanding what is the client's comprehension of what's going to be required to actually get this result. And so that probably segues us nicely onto the next point is what is actually the real cost of achieving incredible transformations. And I'm not talking about like, listen, there's levels to this.
Yeah.
This
is where there's differences a little bit between our audiences. And,
there's lifestyle, I like to refer to it, there's lifestyle lean, and then there's thick skin shredded or labia lean, as Luke Lehman would say. Not my term, that's his. So I think that's a big difference. It's a big difference, but it varies by degree rather than kind.
Yeah.
I think that's also what people miss as well, is that there's almost a secret ingredient to these people that are getting crazy shredded.
It's the same principles.
100%.
It's the same principles. It's just how far do you take it? And, yeah.
So let's start with that then. Let's just start with the cost of getting really, really lean. Well, and we can both speak to this. We've both competed in physique competitions. Obviously, you much longer ago, me much more recently. And the reality is it comes with quite a number of costs. And so we'll start at the extreme end and work our way back.
Yeah.
If I think about the stuff that I did, now bear in mind, I've competed in physique shows both as a natural and as a performance enhanced individual. And so as a result of that, I've seen the costs that have came with both of those approaches. There's benefits to the enhanced side of things that you're not safeguarded against when you do natural, but on the other side, there's also additional risks you take with being enhanced as well. But let's just say we take the PEDs side of things just off the table for now, and we just look at the stuff that everyone is going to be concerned with, which is the calorie deficit side of things, the sleep side of things, the juggling your life sort of obligations and your work priorities, your family priorities, etc. The reality is that to get really, really lean, it's a very solitary endeavor for the most part. Thing that often is not explained to you is that not everyone is going to get or understand why you're doing what you're doing. So if it's not important enough to you, that's where it has to start. You need to know that this is something that you're only doing for yourself. Because if you try to do it to please anyone else, or you try to do it for your family or your husband or wife or to impress your friends, that's just going down a very dark path that you don't want to go down. So you need to be 100% convinced for yourself, this is something I want for me. This is a challenge I'm setting for myself. And these are the type of outcomes that I'm wanting to achieve out of this. It should be about the challenge. It should be about pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. Yeah. But the next part that people don't tell you about is, okay, maybe you want to step on stage or get photo shoot lean. The thing is the further towards that end of the spectrum we go, health starts to become much less correlated to that, because people often think, well, and this is, I think, a big part of what the anti-diet people we spoke about in our last podcast push against as well. People are using their absolutely shredded photo shoot.
They're using that as an example.
As an example of health.
Why they shouldn't diet as well. Of
Correct.
Health and why they shouldn't diet, because getting lean is dangerous.
But the point is that the lean people are using it as an advertisement for health.
Yeah.
So I understand, and that's why I love playing on both ends of the spectrum, like play devil's advocate from one side to the other for a moment. If I was an anti-diet person, I'm looking at, that's so disingenuous. You're promoting this idea of health and whatever else, but there's nothing healthy about getting that lean. And here's the thing, as someone who's competed in physique sports, as have you, they're right. Like, at the end of the day, bodybuilding is not healthy. It's just not.
Yeah, I mean, I've competed as well, and I've always said that is not a healthy point as a woman to take your body. It's never going to be. I don't want to stay there. I mean, I still had my period, like literally a week before my show and stuff. And so I felt pretty good.
Well, you had a good coach.
So I think I had a very good coach. I had a very good prep and stuff. So, and I felt absolutely fine around it and after. So maybe that's not the norm, but yeah, that doesn't change the fact that the level of lean that I got, staying there would have not been healthy. No.
So there's the long-term
the leaner
impacts
you want to get, like the more the health is going to suffer. And, of course, the more times you do it, the older you get, like all of these things also factor into that.
Yeah. And the more time it's going to take you to recover from that as well.
Yeah. And this is why, like for me, like I've dieted many times, a few times, but I tend to diet every like 2 to 3 years in terms of getting lean, because I know like just trying to get shredded once a year or a couple of times a year, like that is not a good spot to be. But when I do it, I really do it.
You're locked in. You're
like
focused.
I'm locked in.
Yeah.
And I want to make it count. And because I don't diet all the bloody time, I also feel like I have what I need to give in order to make that happen. And I feel like I'm going into my diet, I'm actually excited about this. I'm excited about making the sacrifices and, dialing things in and all of these things, because it actually has a positive impact on every area of my life, productivity, even health, how I feel, because, I would eat more vegetables. I would be very mindful about like I level up my habits even more, even though they're already good, they have to go to a different level. So I feel good. My performance increases. So I've always felt very good going in and executing a fat loss phase, and I always really enjoy the process. But a lot of that is also because I take my time between. I don't diet all the time.
Yeah, and it's funny, there's a lot of women probably listening to this that are probably thinking, what do you mean? So they're probably just like, what do you mean you only diet every 2-3 years? Because let's be honest, many females and many people that have came to us, that it's almost like they've lived in a perpetual thought process of, I need to diet.
Yeah,
and so this idea of maintaining or even building is just like, again, what do you mean? Like,
when I'm not dieting, I don't think about getting leaner or restricting or anything. Like, I'm just existing. This is coming down to like maintenance habits and routines and stuff like that are still the base, whether I'm dieting or not. But like, you need to give your mind a break, because again, and this ties it back into what we're actually talking about, what's required in a focused fat loss phase, which is being like, you need to be focused, and it's going to require work, and it's not going to happen by by itself. Obviously, in my case, going from when I diet, I'm already at a good composition. I'm already like fairly lean. So I go beyond what is maintainable for me intentionally. So that's what I require to do is at a higher level. Then I need to tighten things up even more than somebody who's maybe 10 kilos overweight and want to get down to like a healthy level of a baseline. So, and I think that's the nuance that I wanted to make sure that we touch on.
You need to tighten up things more relative to that individual. Because the reality is that they're existing at the end of the spectrum, where if you took the total change from their starting point to where you would eventually get to, it's a lot of change.
Exactly.
And that therein lies a message, which I think people miss, is that people who, for example, get in shape for physique competitions, and often you'll see this, like at least the cerebral smart coaches nowadays, they'll often run what's called like a priming phase or like a pre-prep phase. There's a very specific reason for that, is they want to ensure that that individual is in a physiological and psychological ready place to start the rigors or the endeavors of a fat loss phase. Because the reality is, if your body is already in a bad place health-wise, mentally you're not in the right place, you are literally just driving uphill with the handbrake on. It's just, you're going to, eventually everything's going to fall apart, literally. So I think that's a key thing that people don't think about is, yes, there's you need to accept what it's going to take, but I wanted to just touch on that quickly, was that actually starting from a really, really healthful and strong foundation. Ideally, you've already got some training experience behind you to go into a contest prep. But let's just say you're someone who's just generally trying to change your health and body composition. You're probably thinking, well, I'm not trying to prepare for a physique show, so therefore I don't need to do X, Y, and Z. I don't need to go to that extreme. You're right. But that doesn't mean that some of the things that physique competitors do and people getting ready for photo shoots do isn't the same stuff as what you need to do. You're still going to have to make some sacrifices.
And in my case, like when I go into a diet phase, yes, I have to be more locked in, but I don't increase my training days. I maybe increase my steps a little bit. Maybe I'll do a cardio session or two. Like I don't like do crazy changes activity wise, because my baselines are pretty good for us and for me, like for both of us. That's going to be generally like meals out and then sticking to a calorie target, which is lower than what I would normally eat. So I track my calories and I have a calorie target. And in my last diet, it was 17 weeks. I think it was my birthday as well during that time. And I think I had like one or two, I had one non-tracked day, or I had maybe one or two non-tracked meals. But for 17 weeks, I didn't order in, I didn't have any meals out. Well, we had our poke bowl, so we had like that. But we didn't eat on restaurants or like stuff like that. So I was just very focused on the diet, because I knew this is what's going to get me the results. And I didn't feel, oh my God, I can't have this, I can't have that, I'm missing this, I'm missing that. Didn't feel that, because I'd already adjusted my mindset to, this is what I'm going to do. This is what's going to help me get there in the time that I need to be. So I didn't feel like it was a struggle, because I was bought into the process. But when I work with my clients, of course, they don't have to go from where they are to not having a single meal out. Or that's why I say you can have a meal out. You can have you can have flexibility there. But like there's a difference between what they need to do because of where they are versus what I need to do because of where I am.
And that sort of actually brings us really well onto the next point, which is the cost of getting lean is dependent on the individual. And I think Precision Nutrition, we remember this was like one of their sort of hallmark articles years ago, which was the cost of getting lean. And they sort of almost gave like a bit of a rolling scale of, right, if you're starting at this body fat percentage, to get from there all the way down to here, to here, to here, what are the additional costs that start to come with that? And so, listen, if you're just trying to improve your health generally and you just want to get to a healthful maintenance composition, you're probably not going to have to do too much that's crazy. It's going to be tightening up habits. It's going to be looking at things like sleep, stress management, walking more often, getting to the gym consistently 3 times a week. Being consistent, having just consistency. I think actually having a baseline of consistency is pretty much going to get most people to a healthful baseline. And so I think from this point onwards, it's probably just good to set the disclaimer that we're going to be talking now more so about people trying to get like a transformation, like they're trying to get leaner. So let's sort of aim at that. People are trying to make a significant shift from where they are now to a particular goal.
So assuming that they don't have like 25 kilos to
Correct.
lose at this
So
point,
let's
they
make
may
that
have
assumption that for this next part,
they
that
have
we're
like
talking
10
about.
kilos or less to drop to get lean, I would
Exactly.
say. Like,
Or they're already at a healthful composition, but they're trying to get, because for example, I still dropped like 12 kilos to get stage.
yeah, I mean, I dropped 8 kilos, I think, or did I?
So
No, not
rather
this
than
diet.
putting like a weight on it, it's more that we're just talking about you were already somewhere near a healthful composition to start. We're not talking about you being obese or morbidly obese from the start. Let's just say you're at a quote unquote normal BMI sort of reasonable weight. If you're in that position, ultimately the scale of getting lean is going to start looking like this. It's like, well, maybe at maintenance, you can afford to eat out a few times a week. The further down the scale you go, as I rightly pointed out, things like meals out and ordering in, they don't exist. Not during that time. You're going to be pretty much on top of all of your own food. You're going to be tracking every single macro, and you're going to be ideally what we like to call is being proactive with your tracking and not reactive. So you've already planned your stuff out in advance. You're then just following through. And that's the sort of scale that you sort of run through. If you then look at it from a training perspective, you might have a baseline of maybe either no cardio, or maybe you've got like a little bit of aerobic workout. You might go out for a run once a week or whatever else. The realities of getting lean, however, and listen, there are people out there, and I think this is the problem when people compare themselves to others on social media. They'll look at their favorite bodybuilder who is also taking lots of PEDs and lipolytics, and they're like, well, they didn't do any cardio during their prep. That doesn't mean that they've never done that at some point. It doesn't mean they might not have to do that in the future. But for you as an individual, you have to be prepared for the idea that how much movement you're doing for cardio at the moment may have to increase quite substantially. And certainly I can speak back to when I did my natural prep. I literally got to a point where I was doing an hour of cardio every day. I've other
never
clients,
done that, to be fair.
Mal's never done
so
that.
So again, it's going to be
differences between individuals, right? I've had other clients where they started at nothing and they got up to a point where they were doing like half an hour a day, or they were doing 2 hours a week. But the point is that you need to accept the idea that if you are not able to reduce calories any further beyond your tolerance, something else has got to give. And so you've either got to be...
my last fat loss phase, I didn't do any cardio, I don't think.
There you go.
I was just walking and then stuck into my calories.
But the thing is that there's multiple levers to this thing, right? And so ultimately you have to accept that, well, something's got to give.
Yes.
That's just the key. If we had to even cut this podcast now, that would be the takeaway message, is that there's sacrifices you have to make and there's costs that you have to bear. So whether that's you need to increase your activity up beyond what you normally do, and then as you drop body fat, you drop body weight, overall body mass, there's this wonderful thing that happens called adaptive thermogenesis, and so your body adapts, it becomes more efficient. It actually starts to take less calories to do the task that you did previously, because why? Your body's incredible at surviving. And
it also kind of slows you down. So like I'm somebody who's quite, I notice it myself, I'm usually quite, I move things and I'm
fidgety
kind of fidgety and stuff, like, but when I'm in a diet phase, especially towards the end, I'm just like a lot more slow. And those things, like you may not even notice it because it's just happens. It just slows. So you have to like intentionally like overcome that, because it adds up. Like if I'm fidgeting all day and then I don't,
targets, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you were just being completely left to your own devices, I mean, some people do have more of a habitual nature to move, but for those of us that don't, you would literally, your body would just start walking less, moving less, fidgeting less. And so this is why you have to be very intentful. There might be, it gets to 9 o'clock at night, you've had a busy day, you haven't reached your step target. And the reality of getting really lean is that whether you want to go out for that walk or not, guess what? Do something, grab your headphones, whatever, you are going and you're going to go get that walk. But when you're trying to just maintain, that might be a night where you could just go, I'll just leave it till tomorrow or the next day. So the point is that the level of consistency required and the level of precision of execution, all these things start to increase exponentially the further towards the extreme end that you're starting to get. But I think the other cost
and to tie that in with that, it's also important when, you know, when you're maybe a consumer or you're looking at these transformations, to really appreciate like that didn't just happen overnight, you know, not that it didn't happen overnight, but it wasn't like to get from A to B requires that level of effort and dedication and focus. And, you know, it may look good on paper, but that's one thing, looking at it, and one thing is to execute it, you know, to that degree.
Yeah, a new level of results requires a new level of execution, right?
Yeah.
I think that one thing to just slightly segue back to, because we sort of mentioned the cost of not eating out and not ordering meals in, but that was just on the energy side of things, the calorie side of things. The cost we didn't speak about was the social cost. And so if you're, for example, someone who is a bit of a social butterfly, like it really fills your cup, so to speak, to spend time with friends and to go out for meals. And the problem is that when the further you get towards something like a photo shoot goal or a fat loss goal, guess what? You either have to find other ways of spending time with these people that still fill your cup, so to speak, or
which can be hard to do if they are not making the changes. Like if they're not, you can't expect your friends to adjust to your goal. So then either you have really good friends and you can do other activities that doesn't just involve food, or you can choose to join into these sort of activities, but without necessarily being able to partake in the food component. And make it work for you. I mean, I've had, one client I worked with quite recently, like she was really good at this. Like she would just, sometimes she would join in on the meals and stuff, or sometimes she would look at the menu and but other times she would eat before, and she would be like, I would just enjoy being with my friends, having a chat, having a laugh, but I might just drink a Diet Coke, or, maybe I'll have something small, but I wouldn't go there for my main meal because I wanted to stick to my targets and I wanted to progress. That was my priority, but I still could enjoy my time with my friends. So
there's two things with that, right? There's the intentionality behind it, but there's also reframing a situation, because the problem is people tend to catastrophize things. It's like, well, I'm not able to do this and I don't get to do that, versus
you can.
I get to go out and spend time with my friends, but I'm just going to have to reframe what that entails this time round, or for this period of time.
Is it really about the friends and that, or is it really about the food as well? Because for some people it might be, well, I want the food. Like that's the thing that's giving me pleasure.
People don't want to admit that to themselves.
Yeah, but if that's the case, then that's another problem we need to tackle. So as
you can imagine with this, there's just a whole bunch of costs that come with this. And of course, we haven't even got into, and we won't go into the details now, but we had to just touch on a few other things. There's the cost it has on things like, your relationships, which, let's be honest, like even if you're the most grounded, sane, calm person, I can only speak from my last experience. Like when I was in the sort of final 6 weeks of my last prep, let's be honest, I'm not a snappy person. I got quite snappy at times, and it wasn't very pleasant.
You were a pain in the ass to be you, who's really usually a very easygoing. I was like, who is this guy? Is this my husband? And I know you were still not as bad as I know some people are. I know that you were still probably good, but I was like,
but relatively speaking, there was clear changes.
Yeah, there were.
So that's something that also doesn't sometimes get spoken about, is the friction it can create. And then let's just say we're talking about productivity. I think that lasts up to a point, but then as you're getting towards the end of your fat loss phase, it literally starts
conserving
to go the
energy. Like energy. That's one of the hardest thing with dieting towards the end is energy, and like you need to be very, you need to conserve your resources. So I had to be very selective with where I put my energy and like prioritize. So I know I need to prioritize my client check-ins, but I wouldn't really want to see anybody or like socialize, or because I just don't have the resources. So towards the very end, and that's even me doing it fairly healthily and, not getting shredded, but still like that energy drop will hit you towards the end.
And people don't want to talk about this, because the whole lie is that you'll feel your best, look your best, but the reality is, to get the significant transformations, there is going to be periods where, guess what, you're going to be hungry, energy is going to dip, you're not going to feel your most focused. And I think that's one of the big lies that almost many people trying to market their services but don't want to convey what the cost is they pull the wool over people's eyes and make them think, well, it's just going to be all sunshine and rainbows to get to that result, but it's really not. And I think this is just take this as a warning from us, that if you're going to go into something that's what we'd refer to as a significant transformation, where you're making a significant change, you're going to have to be ready to not only forego some things, there's an element of suffering, natural suffering and needed suffering that comes with that.
Yeah. And I think that's a good place to sort of finish off, I guess, is, okay, we've talked about the cost, we talked about the suffering, and, well, having, why are you doing it? Like, what's the reward from doing it? Like, making sure that that's something that you're very, like, why should you bother? I'm talking now about getting really lean, sub-maintenance lean, why is it worth your time? Like, is that's something that maybe you can share? Like, what drove you? I mean, I know what kind of drove me, but you need to have that quite identified, because that's what you're pulling on when things are getting rough or it's starting to struggle.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I have one of my highest held values is I feel like it's important to put yourself in positions where you're forced to grow both personally, professionally, etc. And so for me, let's just take the last contest prep I did. For me, I wanted to have something that was a challenge that I knew was going to be very, very difficult, but that it would force me to really examine where I was currently at, current habits, and to forcibly make some quite significant improved changes. I knew that there was aspects of it that weren't going to be sustainable. With that said, I also thought there was aspects of it that, well, I can very much hold on to these habits that I've built through this and actually carry that with me into maintenance. The other part of it for me is
calibrate some things.
And it did. I came out of that last prep and I'm probably in the most habitually and just natural maintenance state I've ever been in. I'm holding the most muscle I've ever had. I'm holding a pretty good composition in terms of body fat, but the habits are all there as well. So I think with for me, it was a way of sort of resetting and recalibrating habits. But the other thing I think for me as well that people sort of don't necessarily take into account is that it doesn't have to be all doom or gloom, and it doesn't all have to be all or nothing. It's very much a case that you can utilize something like that. Yes, it may albeit be extreme, but if it's done properly, there is a certain amount of skills and baseline habits that you develop as part of that extreme process that can be carried into a non-extreme environment or your maintenance environment. But I think if you were to also ask me like another intrinsic motivator, I'm someone that when I start something, I need to see it through to completion. And so I know when I start a challenge like this, and this was like something I saw as a challenge, I thrive on challenge and on being stretched. I knew that the moment that I started that, there was never, ever going to be a question that I would see it through to completion. Not once. And so I think that's key. It's really, really important to understand what is it you're trying to get out of this to carry forward with you.
It needs to go beyond, I just want to have abs, or it has to go beyond that, especially because you're also going to get to a point where I'm feeling pretty good now. I'm pretty lean. I could just stop here, end my suffering. Okay, that sounds bad, but but to take it that extra level, like it's what is driving that beyond just the physical, seeing things through to completion. For me, a lot of it is similar to you, but also, for me to understand, to coach my clients and understand, I feel like I need to lead by example and I need to go beyond what I'm asking them to do. That's part of it. And I'm of course learning a lot about myself and all of these things. And that reward and that feeling you feel when you hit that end goal and when you've done that is very rewarding. Like that goes beyond any instant gratification that you can get in the moment. Like the meals out, for me, like the little sacrifices that you make, they're not going anywhere. Like we love a meal out. We love to, whatever, go and have a bakery pastry and like these little things, like that's fine, but I don't need it there and then. They're always going to be there. But for me, what I really thrive off is this is the process that I went through. I thrive off the process. I love the process of working towards my photo shoot goals and these when I do them every 2 to 3 years. I love to do that. I get a lot from it.
I think that's a positive note to end on is not just thinking about because we've talked a lot about the cost of getting lean. But just something I want you to consider as you finish listening to this episode and as you take time to sort of take in some of the stuff we've discussed during this episode is think about a lot of the stuff that you might potentially gain, not just now and going through the process, but in the long run as well. Yeah,
like to quickly finish on that, like that I can fairly confidently say like the things that I learned in my first diet in my comp prep, my first couple of diets that I did is it's what I have to thank to my habits and my awareness and knowledge. That's how I can actually stay reasonably lean without really trying. And it's because I also dieted responsibly and in a good, like the right way from the beginning, but I wouldn't be where I am now if I hadn't gone through with those phases. I didn't know it then, but
So I think to sum it out, there's a lot of costs that come with it, but there's a hell of a lot to gain if it's done right.
If it's done right, yeah. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Fitness Rants podcast.
If you got value from this conversation, be sure to hit subscribe on either YouTube or your preferred podcast platform so you don't miss any of our weekly rants.
Oh, and if you're feeling generous, we would really appreciate it if you would drop us a 5-star rating or a review because it would help more listeners like you to find the show.
If you haven't already, be sure to connect with us on Instagram. We'll leave our handles in the episode description.
Thanks for tuning in. We look forward to having you back for our next episode.